Yo, what is going on, guys? Coming at you with my top 10 Pokemon coming out of Cosmic Eclipse. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Coming up at number 10, we do have the Naganadel Guzzlord Tag Team GX, the ability Gluttony. Once during your turn, before you attack, you may discard a Pokemon from your hand. If you do, deal 60 damage from this Pokemon. First attack, Jet Pierce, Psychic Dart, colorless, 180 damage flat, that's it, no effect. And then the GX attack, Chaos Order, colorless plus, flip over your prize cards, they remain face up for the rest of the game. If you got a Psychic and Dark Energy attached in addition to the attack cost, take 2 prize cards. So the GX attack is actually just pretty strong in general. It's not super costly, especially because your first attack is already the same requirement as your GX attack to get the full effect. Being able to see what you have prized is pretty nice, and then just taking 2 prize cards is also pretty cool. You can theoretically go GX attack, KO a non-GX, KO tag team, GX, and then that's it. Those are your 6 prize cards for the game. So GX attack is pretty strong. The normal attack, not too ridiculously powerful, just the 180 damage, but comboed with the ability and some other healing cards or tank cards like choice helmets and such, I think the Naganadel Guzzlord could actually bring a whole new archetype of a deck around itself into the meta with the release of this card. Just kind of like I don't know what else you'd play alongside him. Maybe just some Hoopas, just like 4 Guzzlord, Naganadel, maybe 4 Hoopa. Probably have to throw some other Pokemon in there just so you can consistently use the ability every turn. But with the ability, as long as you have the Pokemon for it and a choice helmet, you're reducing the damage you take from tag teams by, or GX Pokemon in general, by 90 damage. That's quite a bit. And then in other matchups, if you just play enough healing, you'll be able to, great potions, mixed herbs, maybe something like that. You can just kind of heal through all the damage they deal. So I definitely think this card has a lot of potential in being a tank build where you just try and keep your Guzzlord, you build up like 2 Guzzlords slowly, and you try and keep them alive, and then attack for 180 every turn. But if they're not knocking you out, you don't really care. So we'll have to see, but I actually have some high hopes for this card. It's definitely going to be a lot of fun to at least test it out and see if we can get it there, get it working. Maybe it won't quite get there. I want it to get there. I would love it if Naganadel Guzzlord became a deck in the meta. But that's my number 10. Let's go ahead and move on to number 9. We do have the Volcarona GX with the Scorching Bomb ability. Discard a fire energy from your hand once during your turn. If you do, put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. This is the main draw of this card, is definitely the ability, the Scorching Bomb ability. It is on a stage 1 though, and its attacks aren't too ridiculously good. I mean, backfire is pretty solid. Fire, colorless, 160, return 2 fire energy from this Pokemon to your hand. So not discarding the energy and having them go back to your hand is definitely pretty nice. That means you don't have to, get them back out of the discard pile with like Fire Crystal or something to be able to set up another attacker. Or you can, if you have enough Volcaronas in play, you can just use those energies you got back from using the attack to use more abilities, or use a welder again. All of a sudden you don't have to dig for fire energy to use a welder. So I definitely think this card has potential. The things that are kind of, in my opinion, holding it back, it is a stage 1. And then we do have that Mimikyu coming out that says any GX Pokemon with damage counters on them can't use their abilities. So those 2 things, in my eyes, are potentially holding this card back. Gonna have to kind of wait and see, though. I think it has the potential. I don't have the highest hopes for it, but definitely a very powerful card overall. It's kind of I have it in the same boat as kind of the Naganadel Guzzlord, where I'd like it to work. But we're gonna have to wait and see if it'll actually be able to be consistent enough after we finally get the cards and are actually able to do some testing. The GX attack, great Heat Wave, discard an energy from each of your opponent's Pokemon. Not a ridiculously powerful GX attack. Will definitely have its moments where you're like, oh, this is just really good here, GX attack, and then really be able to limit your opponent's next turn potentially. But the GX attack is definitely the worst part of this card by far. I wouldn't be surprised if you just you probably just won't use it regularly game to game. There's probably like very unique situations in games where you'll actually utilize it. Probably will not be consistently utilizing the Great Heat Wave GX. The normal attack for 160 though, when you get some pings in there with the ability to actually clean up knockouts will definitely be strong. And then we have so many other cards that work well around fire Pokemon. Like I said, you're obviously going to be playing Welder and probably Fire Crystals with this card. Victini, Prism Star is definitely another card that comes to mind to combo with this card very well. And then where you go from there, I'm not really sure. Do you play it with I don't know, maybe a bunch of baby Volcanions. Like maybe the deck is just like 4 baby Volcanions and this, and you just get a bunch of fire energy in play, and then you attack with like baby Pokemon, and then you use the abilities to kind of supplement the low damage that they do, but you'll make up for it with the Scorching Bomb. I don't know. Who knows? That's the way I see this card potentially working out. Maybe you just play it by itself, and it's just, you know, you try and set up 4 Volcaronas, and then you use the 160 attack, and you set up other damage through the ability. Maybe, who knows? There's definitely a lot of different ways this card could potentially be played, so we're gonna have to wait and see which is kind of the best way to play it. And then even once we figure out the best way to play it, will it be able to keep up with the other decks in the format? Have to wait and see. Coming up, number 8, I do have the Persian GX. This is one of my personal favorite cards coming out of the new set, with the ability Smug Face, prevent all effective attacks, including damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's tag team Pokemon, Ultra Beasts, and Pokemon with special energy attached to them. So a super powerful ability on the Persian isn't affected by effective attacks or damage by tag teams, Ultra Beasts, or Pokemon special energy. Now, special energy is not a very common thing in the current meta, current format, but Ultra Beasts and tag teams are everywhere. So being able to avoid the damage from those is pretty powerful. Not just the damage, but also the effects of attacks. Now, this actually wouldn't be that great of an ability because we have Power Plant if we weren't also getting the Chaos Storm or whatever stadium card that says, while the stadium is in play, if your opponent plays a stadium, discard their stadium, then discard your stadium. So you theoretically play 4 of those stadiums with the Persian GX. Your opponent might just never be able to put Power Plant in play, meaning they can never get through the Smug Face ability, and you can sit there and do 120 with the Claw Slash for Dark Colorless, and that's your way to kind of take your prize cards and take your knockouts. And I would assume this deck would probably have to be comboed with quite a bit of healing to keep it alive, because they will have other stuff that can hit it. Like if you play up against a Pikarom, they can't hit you with Pikarom, they can't hit you with Raichu, but they can hit you with Zeraora. So maybe you'll want like Choice Helmets in here to avoid stuff like Zeraora taking knockouts on you. Not sure yet, but I think this card has a lot of potential when the meta is right, just to be like, well, you know, it's all tag teams right now. I'm going to play just this 4/4 Persian deck with 4 of the Chaos Storm or whatever stadium, stop my opponent from putting Power Plants in play, and they can't do anything. So I think this card has a ton of potential. I'm super excited for this card to come out and build a deck around him. The GX attack is Dark Colorless, 120 of your opponent's Pokemon. Nothing too ridiculous. The GX attack is actually just kind of bad overall. It's basically doing what your first attack is doing, except you could like snipe the bench for 120 if you want to close out a game a little bit faster for some reason. But that's about it. But yeah, definitely think Persian has a lot of potential. I don't quite know the right way to play it as far as acceleration goes. You could play triple acceleration, energy. You could play Welders. Welder seems like probably the way to go. It is Dark, Colorless, attach a Dark, Welder for 2 fire, boom, Claw Slash for 120. So Welder's probably gonna, okay, another Welder deck. Welder's probably gonna be the way to go with Persian. But you know what? I'm fine with that. I'm excited for the card. How good it will actually be, we'll have to wait and see. But I think it'll definitely have its moment at some point, and just being like, well, there's way too many tag teams going around right now. Persian is the guy to go to. And if they can't deal damage, they can't win the game usually. So yeah, there it is. Coming up at number 7, I do have the Silvally GX. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this card, and I am basing this top 10 off of kind of the raw power of the cards, slash how good I think they are, slash the perceived expected potential of the cards as well. I know a lot of people like this card. I'm not as big of a fan. I don't think the disc reload is too ridiculously strong. I mean, drawn until you have 5 cards is okay. We've had this in the past with Octillery. I think this card will see play. I don't think it's going to be bad or anything, but the GX, or the normal attack for Colorless, 50 if you played a supporter, 70 more, so effectively 120 damage a turn, is not that ridiculously strong. Stuff has such high HP right now. It can set up a 2-shot, but you're not doing really any kind of potential 1-shots against stuff like Mews or any kind of tag teams. The GX attack, on the other hand, is pretty cool. Colorless, White Knight GX. If your opponent's active as an Ultra Beast, that Pokemon is knocked out. That's pretty cool. The GX attack can be pretty strong, you know, depending on the meta. Are Ultra Beasts a thing? So on. I think the card is pretty solid overall. I'm not as blown away by it as some people, but I definitely think it'll have its place in the meta, in some decks for sure. Where it'll sit, you know, will it be in a bunch of tier 1 decks? Who knows? We'll have to kind of wait and see, but it'll have its place for sure. I'm more confident it'll have its place than something like the Guzzlord or the Volcarona. but I'm not completely blown away by it. I don't think it's going to be a massive game changer or mix up or change up in the meta or what's going on currently in the format in general. At number 6, we do have the Mimikyu that says that's ability is, as long as this Pokemon is in play, each player's Pokemon GX with damage counters on it has no abilities. And then Perplexing Tail, 20 damage, flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active is now confused. So the attack, nothing stellar, nothing to write home about. The ability is really what this card is all about. And obviously going to be very strong in Malamar. Malamar gets a ton of new tools in this set. How many of them they will actually utilize, not sure, but this is one that they'll probably utilize for sure, but that other decks can definitely take advantage of as well. Being able to stop stuff like Mew Mew and decks like that from being able to use their abilities, or even stuff like Volcarona or Silvally, is going to be super strong. I definitely see this card being played, like I said, in Malamar, probably as a one-of. Probably the idea of it taking up a bench space is a little bit annoying as the Malamar player. But I think the trade-off is probably going to be worth it overall. So we'll probably see this guy as at least a one-of in Malamar decks. In other decks, especially decks that can kind of spread damage around, I definitely can see this card being played as well. We'll kind of have to wait and see for sure, but a lot of potential with this card, with the ability to, as long as your deck can do some kind of spread damage onto GX Pokemon, maybe even some kind of Shrine deck might come back because of this card. And you're like, all right, put the Shrine in play, bench the Mimikyu. All right, all these abilities are shut off now. I'll deal with everything from there. So here he is at number 6. Don't have a ton to say about him. Gonna be good in Malamar. What else? Who knows? Up at number 5, another Malamar card. We do have the Psychic Blacephalon. Now he's pretty high here on my list, but because it is such a ridiculously powerful card in the Malamar deck, I don't think it'll see much play outside of the Malamar deck. Maybe in Expanded he'll see some play in other decks, but in Standard at the very least, he's going to be for sure played in Malamar. He's got that Depth Bomb for Psychic Colorless. Put 4 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. Doesn't seem too great, but if your opponent has exactly 3 prize cards remaining, which Malamar is very good at forcing your opponent to take 1 prize at a time, so they're going to end up on the 3 prize turn, most likely at some point. Put 12 damage counters on them instead in any way you like. So yeah, pretty ridiculously strong attack for just Psychic Colorless energy. Your opponent's got 3 prize cards, 12 damage counters anywhere you like, and this just kind of combos super well with what Malamar tries to do in general. You've got the Espeon Deoxys in the late game to put more damage counters wherever you want. You've got the Distortion Doors and Spell Tags to also be able to put more damage wherever you want. So you can really help. It really can just help you set up to draw your prizes more cleanly, or end up with like more different ways to win games. Like maybe now instead of trying to chase 2 tag teams in a row, you can go, okay, 1 tag team, knock out 2 Dedennes. Like, I don't know, there's so many different ways that this guy can change how you want to take your prizes. It's actually pretty insane. Yeah, this card is going to be ridiculously powerful in Malamar. I don't see it being played in much else, but you'll see him there for sure. Up at number 4, we do have the Low Bunny Jigglypuff tag team GX Pokemon. Definitely a ridiculously powerful card for its first attack when there's so many GX Pokemon going around. Triple Colorless Jumping Balloon, 60 damage plus. This attack does 60 more damage for each of your opponent's Pokemon GX and Pokemon EX in play. The Puff Smasher GX Colorless plus. If your opponent's active Pokemon is now asleep, if you have at least 4 extra energy, in addition to the attack cost, do 200 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon, so potentially sniping stuff like Dedenne and stuff off the bench. So this card almost for sure going to be included as a one-of into the Mew Box deck, if Mew Box exists past Mimikyu. Mimikyu might be the nail in the coffin for Mew Box, but who knows? Maybe it'll stick around past that. We'll have to kind of wait and see. This can also potentially be played in stuff like Pikarom as well. I could definitely see it being added as a one-of copy in stuff like Pikarom, even stuff like Green's Reshizard or like Ability Zard. It's gonna be added as a one-of. The triple colorless cost on the attack just makes it super easy to put in so many decks. This card and the potential for so much damage when so many people are playing so many GXs. I mean, it's just pretty reasonable for it to be hitting really hard no matter what GX deck you're playing up against. So I don't know where this card is going to go for sure. Like I said, Mew Box maybe as a one-of, Green Zard, Ability Zard. There's so many places this can be so easily fit, and it's such a powerful card just in its first attack. that I have it up here pretty high at the number 4 spot. But moving on to number 3, we do have the Braixen Charizard Tag Team GX. Shiny Flare, 180 damage for Fire colorless. You may search your deck for up to 3 cards and put them into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. And then we got the Crimson Flame Pillar GX Fire Plus. Attach 5 basic energy cards from your discard pile to your Pokemon any way you like. If this Pokemon has at least 1 extra energy attached to it, in addition to the attack cost, your opponent's active is now burned and confused. So the GX attack is pretty bad. The bonus effect on it is okay. Burning and confusing along with 5 energy in play is like okay, but usually with fire decks or decks that play fire energy or that could utilize this card, you have other more powerful GX attacks you want to be using. If you throw this into a Mew box, you probably want to be using Flare Blitz or Espeon Deoxys GX attack for your GX attack. If you're playing this with Reshizard in like a green Zard deck, you probably want to be using Double Blaze as your GX attack still. But I do think this card will definitely be able to be utilized probably in both those decks pretty heavily. The first attack is super powerful, and it's kind of what's been missing, I feel like, a little bit from Mew box. Just an attack that does a reasonable amount of damage. 180 is pretty good, and then that also allow the extra effect of it allowing you to search for any 3 cards and put them in your hand is pretty good. Go search yourself double custom catcher, the welder combo for next turn. A whole ton of things you can do with this in Mew box. I also think there's a pretty high potential that this card kind of replaces Reshizard in Green Zard, and it's more of maybe 1 Reshiram or 1 Reshizard and then 2 of this card instead of 3 Reshizard, and then this guy is your early game attacker, and then you have the fallback of the 1 Reshizard just for the Double Blaze attack basically, and you're just kind of using Shiny Flare, getting 3 cards, making it that much easier to use your greens to get even bigger greens combos off on following turns. Like, yeah, I think that's how this card is going to be played. I think that's where it's going to shine the best. It's going to take the place of 2 of the Reshizards in Green Zard. You'll still be playing 1 Double Blaze, but that's where I think this guy's going to shine the most. The card's ridiculously strong either way. Maybe the deck is just 3 of these and you don't even play the Reshizard anymore. I don't know. All I know is I think this card is definitely going to be played in Mew box, and like I said, Green Zard, I think it's going to have a place in there as well. Past that, not so sure it'll be played anywhere else, but I think it'll be a big deal in those 2 decks at the very least. Coming up at number 2, I do have the Oricorio GX, which is mainly utilized for its ability dedicated dance when one of your Pokemon is knocked out during your opponent's turn. So poison, burn, if those take the knockouts, it does get around this effect or this ability being triggered. You may draw 3 cards. That is pretty good. Simply being able to draw 3 cards when your opponent takes a knockout is pretty strong. That's pretty powerful. The attacks, Psychic Colorless, Razor Wing for 80, and then the GX attack Strafe for Psychic Colorless as well. 100 damage, switches Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. Aren't anything ridiculously strong. Might be nice to utilize Razor Wing if you do play this in Mew box, which I think this will find its way into Mew box as a 1-of. For sure. I'm sure it'll find its way into Ability Zard as a 1-of as well. Just the ability to just draw 3 cards whenever your opponent takes a prize, especially in something like Ability Zard where you're already putting Dedennes on your bench and you're feeding your opponent a lot of one prize Pokemon. Being able to draw 3 cards every time your opponent knocks out a Turtonator or a Volcanion or the Baby Blacephalon or Victini Prism is pretty good. So I think this will definitely find its way into Ability Zard and Mew box. Besides those, not too sure. We have to also figure out what other kind of archetypes are going to be actually just coming out of this set in general. But for this card, I think is definitely going to be an inclusion in those 2 current decks in the current format and the current meta. Besides that, who knows? This card is just so ridiculously strong. The ability is just kind of ridiculous. You can only use 1 per turn, but still, I think this card, the ability itself is just the rest of the card doesn't even matter. It could be blank. It could have no attack, no GX attack, no normal attack. If it just had the ability, the card would be ridiculously strong. Yeah, that's why it's up here on my number 2 slot. Like, just the raw power of this card is ridiculous. Moving on to the number 1, we do have the Reshiram Zekrom Tag Team GX for kind of the same reason as the Oricorio. Just the raw power of this card is kind of insane, and that's what I judged my list off, my top 10 off of here. The most, that's the thing I accounted for the most, is just kind of the raw power of the card. Like in like any meta or like an unknown meta, just kind of as a card in itself, how good is the card potentially? And that's what I've mostly ranked my list on, is just, okay, here's this card. How good is this card just as a card? You know, not irrelevant of meta, irrelevant of format, other cards it has to work with it. If you could like use it effectively with whatever cards you might have access to, how good is the card? And this card is ridiculously good if you can get it to be effective. The first attack, Thunderflame Dream, for a fire and a lightning 90 times. You can discard up to 3 in any combination of basic fire and lightning energy cards from your bench Pokemon, and you do 90 damage for each card discarded in this way. So potentially getting up to 270 damage each turn with the Thunderflame Dream. And then the GX attack, also very strong, a little bit harder to get to, having it cost fire, fire, lightning, lightning. This attack does 170 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. If you played Ends Resolve, new supporter card coming out in this set, from your hand during this turn, this attack does 170 to another of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So if you're down to 4 prize cards, your opponent has 2 Dedenne in play, and you go Ends Resolve, get the extra energy for the Crossbreak GX, knockout Dedenne, maybe knockout Dedenne, knockout Oricorio GX. That's game, right? Ends Resolve allows you to look at the top 6 cards of your deck, discard them all, and then take any basic energy you discard it and attach them to one of your dragon Pokemon. So that's how you're gonna be able to set up into that Crossbreak GX. I definitely think this card has a lot of potential. Probably gonna be comboed with Naganadel, charging up Naganadel. And I mean, like, even though it caps, the damage does cap at 270 for the Reshiram Zekrom. That is the number you're trying to hit right now. The Mew Mew's got 270 HP. Reshizard, 270 HP. I guess we do have stuff like the Naganadel Guzzlord that hits that 280 HP, which could be a little bit annoying, but it's not like they're one-shotting this anyways, so I don't think that'd be too much trouble for you to get over. Gonna have to wait and see. I think this card has a lot of potential. The power level of the card is just ridiculously high, like I said, and that's the main thing I am ranking my top 10 on here, is just kind of like the overall power levels of the card, and this thing is just kind of ridiculous. I definitely expect this to be a tier. If I had to predict it, I would predict this to be a tier 1 deck moving forwards when it comes out. I could be wrong, but you know, that's just kind of my current prediction. Card's ridiculously good. We'll have to wait and see. But that's gonna do it for my top 10. Like I said, I think it's the best with the charge up Naganadel. Maybe some other stuff you could play it with potentially, but if I was looking for an initial partner for it, it would definitely be the charging up Naganadel. And yeah, that's gonna do it for me, guys. That's my top 10 Pokemon coming out of Cosmic Eclipse. The set releases later this week on PTCGO. Be sure to check me out live streaming that on Thursday. And that's it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to give it a like. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to subscribe. Have a good day. Thanks for watching, and peace.